So I'm going to take my layout root and I'm going to add another row at the top, and I will take the various sub-objects and I will change their size so that I have space to put those controls. And within this top section I'm going to add another grid just to give me more control over visuals. Let's stretch that. You'll notice I use auto size fill all the time. Let's give it a background gradient, and we can give that a fixed height at this point. So let's pick a combo box and let's move it approximately where it might be in a real file browser. So I'm going to switch again to my data pane. I'm going to add a new sample data source, and I'm going to call this application presets. It doesn't really matter what this is called. Styles. And again, I'm going to use my ubiquitous name property. So let's open up view styles, and we're just going to manually change this. So we're going to have 3 different view styles. The first one is going to be list, then we'll have details, and then we'll have thumbnails. Again, this is a simplification of the views we generally have in a file browser, but it'll be enough to show what's going on here. So what I'm going to do now to populate that combo box dynamically from the sample data set is I will drag the name field from the view styles and I'll just drop it on the combo box. And I say expand combo box. You'll see that it already has the names that it got from sample data. So what we're going to do is we are going to add a behavior onto the combo box that updates the data store. So I'm going to drag the set data store value action onto the combo box, and that has a bunch of properties, and what I'm going to say is when the combo box selection changes, I'm going to change a property. Now I don't have any properties in my data store yet, so I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call this current view style, and the value that I'm going to put there is going to come from the combo box itself. So I'm going to data bind that to the combo box, and we want to use the selected item, and then what we want is we want the name field from the selected item. So I just have to type that manually, but it will get the job done. Let's put that combo box into the grid. Is in that grid for the top bar, we're going to put another text block that we're going to use just for debugging purposes. Let's move that. We're going to data bind that to the data store's current view style string. So if I click on the combo box, change it to list, yes, it updates the value of the data store. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit the template of this list box, and I'm going to call this the files list box, and let's call this the list version. So within that, we're going to put a list box, and we will resize that to fill the entire area. We're going to template bind various properties. So now I've template bound the internal list box. Add additional templates, generate items, apply resource, and we want to choose files. So let's make a copy. So generate items, create a copy, and we will call this file data template. Well, first let's change the stack panel to be horizontal, and we'll make the image much smaller. So there's my list box. So now we want to come back out to the main part of our application. So really what we've done right now is we have a list within a list. So as I click on the various directories, I get different files. Now when I click on the files, I'm not getting any updates in my details section. So let's change that. So I'll go back into my files list box, and I have something called selected index. And I'm going to template bind that to selected index. And whenever I change the selection, I'm going to update a property in my data store. So I'll use that set data store value property again, so that whenever the selection changes, I'm going to change, and we need a new property. Let's call this selected file index, and we will data bind that value to that list boxes selected index. Now we have to change one thing in our data store, which is the type of index, because we really want that to be a number. If we don't, that's going to cause problems later on, so we'll change that to number. And we will change the default value to match up with the meaningful number for a data populated list. So we will select our outer list box. We will choose a selected index, and we will data bind it to the data stores. Oh, we don't see any properties because they're different types. This is of type double, and a selection index is of type integer. And we'll make sure to select two-way. And I just hit OK. Different details show up for those files. So we need to create some new templates for that list box that reflect different layouts. So I'm going to say edit template of this list, and I'm going to say copy, and the reason I'm going to choose copy is because the one I've created already gives me a pretty good start. Let's thumbnails. The item style, the item template used right now is the file data template, and let's change to file items template. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the layout of this list box, and we'll change it to wrapping items. And we also need to change the scroll bar properties so that they don't go off to the right hand side. So we'll disable the scroll bar. So we still aren't switching the view dynamically, but let's figure out how we can do that. And we have two templates right now. Let's look at our resources pane, and we can see that we have two different templates for the list box. So we're just going to swap between those as we change values of this combo box. So let us get a change property action and drop it on the combo box. What we're going to say is when the selection changes, and we're going to change its template. Let's find template. It's almost near the bottom. And we have a few different choices. The first one we're going to do is we are going to change it to the list box style. But we don't want to always do that when the selection changes. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a condition to this action. We're going to check is the combo boxes selected item dot name equal to list. Just to make this easier to read, let's give that action a name that's human readable. So we'll call that change view style list. And let's make a copy of that action. And we'll change this one from list thumbnails. So instead of checking whether it equals list, we're going to change does it equal thumbnails, and we need to make sure we change the template. Instead of being list box style, we'll change it to thumbnail style. So we have now made a means of changing which template is used by this list box without using any code.